Hi there everyone, this is the second part of the 5.08 video, and I was in the midst of reading here and got cut off here and this historical close-up, so let's finish this up here. I'm going to start with this paragraph. That same summer, farm workers elsewhere in California became enraged about seasonal laborers who are not U.S. citizens being brought in from Mexico. Beginning back in World War II to compensate for labor shortages, the federal government had run a program to bring temporary workers called braceros from south of the border. These impoverished Mexicans provided American farm owners with the cheapest labor available. The government's bracero program had officially ended in 1964, but California grape growers kept bringing in cheap labor from outside the country. In defiance of U.S. law. Although Chavez sympathized with the Mexican Americans who were grossly underpaid in the fields, he and the NFWA did not extend their support to the illegal Mexican immigrant workers who were trucked into California to replace legal workers at a lower wage. When California's legal Mexican farm workers went on strike, the NFWA joined them. Chavez begged the striking workers to avoid violence. "We are engaged in another struggle for the freedom and dignity which poverty denies us," he said, "but it must not be a violent struggle, even if violence is used against us. Violence can only hurt us in our cause." He would not waver from his insistence on nonviolence throughout a lifetime of activism and protest. The strike lasted for 5 years and catapulted Chavez into national prominence. Martin Luther King's successful use of nonviolent resistance across the American South only strengthened Chavez's commitment. In March 1966, frustrated that the NFWA strike had stalled, Chavez ordered a 300-mile march north through the heart of California's farm country to Sacramento, the state capital. The marchers planned to arrive on Easter Sunday to present their complaints to the governor. As more and more people joined the three-week march, it attracted enough media attention to inspire sympathy marches in Chicago and Texas. To draw national attention to the farm workers' cause, Chavez soon seized on a more effective strategy, the boycott. In December 1967, NFWA began urging people to boycott, to refuse to purchase products from grape growers who employed illegal workers. Students and other volunteers in more than 100 cities helped publicize the strategy. Growers responded by changing their product labels so consumers could not tell where the grape products came from. In response, Chavez called for a boycott of all American table grapes. For concerned Americans, grapes had suddenly become a forbidden fruit. Although American consumers vastly supported the boycott, it failed to improve farm workers' salaries fast enough. A frustrated Chavez decided to pursue a riskier strategy, a hunger strike. Again, the inspiration was Gandhi, who, when starting in the 20s, had used hunger strikes to galvanize his followers against the British in India. Chavez, who was worried that fights between union members and strikebreakers would discredit his union, decided that he would eat no food until his union members pledged to remain nonviolent. He began his fast on February 15, 1968. A fellow NFWA official later said that his fast turned out to be the greatest organized tool in the history of the labor movement, at least in this country. Workers came from every sector of California and Arizona to meet with Cesar. Cesar had more organizing going on while he was fasting than had ever happened before in the Union. Chavez broke his fast 25 days later. He had lost more than 30 pounds and was weak and exhausted. That day, Senator Robert Kennedy joined Chavez to support his cause and raise national awareness about poverty among Hispanics. Chavez was with Kennedy 3 months later when the senator was assassinated in Los Angeles. In the summer of 1970, the long strike was finally settled. 29 grape growers came to the bargaining table. They signed contracts assuring the NFWA higher wages, health care, and safer working conditions, including the regulation of pesticides. In 1972, Chavez went on a second fast, this time to protest working conditions for migrant workers in Arizona, his home state. It lasted 3.5 weeks, and his visitors included Coretta Scott King, the widow of Martin Luther King Jr. He abandoned the fast when attending physicians discovered an irregular heartbeat, thwarting his effort to change the Arizona law. In 1988, he went on a 36-day fast, his longest. Working conditions for California grape pickers are growing worse. His union, now renamed the United Farm Workers of America, was having difficulty negotiating labor contracts, especially provisions ensuring the safe use of pesticides. Chavez, now 61, vowed not to eat until the growers agreed to discuss these issues. After 36 days, Chavez was told he might die if he didn't eat. When he ended the fast, 8,000 people gathered, including Robert Kennedy's widow, Ethel Sackle Kennedy, and civil rights leader Jesse Jackson. Chavez's son announced, on behalf of his debilitated father, "Today I pass on the fast for life to hundreds of concerned men and women throughout North America and the world who have offered to share the suffering." Chavez's taxing life, especially his fast, took a toll on him. He died in his sleep in April 1993 at the age of 66. He had not won every battle, and he was frustrated by his failures, but he had made the farm workers' plight known to the nation. He had shown the hardship of the little-known and ill-paid workers who moved with the seasons could win the support of millions across the nation. He once explained why he found the cause so important. When the man who feeds the world by toiling in the fields himself feels deprived of the basic rights of feeding and caring for his own family, the whole community of man is sick. And here's just a picture of boycotting lettuce. The boycott posters that they used. So now let's go back, and we have to continue with the rest of the lesson. Make sure you filled out your reading guide and check the answers with the lesson answer key. And then we have to complete the population 2000 to 2010 sheet. And you have to go to this website to complete the activity. And it's about creating a graph. And if we go to the activity sheet here, we'll take a look at it. So to complete the population predictions and trends, you have to follow the directions in the student guide. So if we look at the student guide, it says, choose the 2000 to 2010 information for your state. You will use this information to create two pie graphs similar to the graphs on page 866, showing your state's population in 2000 and population predictions for 2010. Go to the Create a Graph website to create and save your graphs. Display your data in a percentage format, print your graphs, and place them in your history journal. So this is just an extra activity to do for your own benefit. They're not submitted for a test, but let's just go through it. So we're going to do a pie graph. Pie, okay. And from here, so we're going to create two graphs, and we're using this population prediction sheet. So we're looking at Minnesota, and we're looking at 2000, and we're going to map out Hispanic origin, white, black, American, Indian, Eskimo, and Aleut, and Asian Pacific Islander. So let me just move this sheet off to the side and go back here. So we're creating a pie graph. We're doing 2000 first. How many slices are we going to need? We need Hispanic, white, black, American Indian, and Asian. So that's 5. So slice 1, we'll call that Hispanic. And the number is, in 2000, it was 95. Okay, and I believe, is this in thousands? What does it say on our sheet here? Or is it just, I'll have to look at that deeper. Okay, so that was Hispanic, and I did not spell Hispanic right. Okay, Hispanic. Then we have a part for white. And in 2000, that was 4,387. And for black, it was 152 in 2000. And then the other one was American. I'm just going to abbreviate American Indian, AI, Eskimo, Aleut. And that was 61. And then the last one was Asian Pacific Islander, and that was 135. Pacific Islander. Okay, so let's see what it looks like. Going through, let's preview what it looks like. There you go. So it's a nice section that shows obviously a majority of white population, the next biggest being black, then Asian Pacific Islander, Hispanic, and lastly Eskimo, American Indian, and Aleut. Okay, now we're going to do another one. So we're going to start over. Yeah, let's start over with a new graph, and let's look how it's changed. We're going to do a pie graph again, and we're going to get our data. And this will be 2010. And then we're going to have the Hispanic and white and black, American Indian, Eskimo, Aleut, and the Asian Pacific Islander group. That was faster. Okay, in 2010 for Minnesota, Hispanic was 132, white was 4,546, black was 202, Asian Pacific Islander was 76, and no, 76 for American Indian, and 192 for Asian Pacific Islander. So let's preview what that looks like. And a little larger in some of those other sections, but still white, the definite majority. So it's just interesting to see how the population has changed in those 10-year span of time. All right, let's go back to read through our chapter highlights. The 1960s were a time of student movement to protest the war, promote peace, oppose the draft, challenge racism, address poverty, and question the role of authority in government. Student organizations included the Students for a Democratic Society, the Free Speech Movement, and Young Americans for Freedom. A less formal counterculture also developed. Woodstock became a symbol for a generation, and Bob Dylan became the voice of hippies and others advocating a cultural freedom and change. Violent political protests, the assassination of Martin Luther King, Jr., and Robert Kennedy, and Richard Nixon's appeal to what he called the silent majority marked the social and political upheaval and public fatigue of 1968. A second wave in the feminist movement began with Betty Friedan's The Feminist Mystique and the founding of the National Organization of Women, NOW, which led to the congressional passage, but not ratification, of the Equal Rights Amendment. Title IX guarantees women equal educational opportunities, including school sports. The landmark decision in Roe v. Wade sparked an ongoing moral and political debate. Inspired by the civil rights movement, previously silent groups, including gays and lesbians, Native Americans, Hispanics, Asian Americans, and the elderly, voiced their demands for equal rights and protections. Cesar Chavez led a nonviolent fight for Mexican-American farm workers and founded the American Farm Workers Union. Okay, now then you will review lessons 505, 506, and 507, and 508 to take your 508 quiz, because you do have a quiz at the end of today's lesson. So be sure you feel prepared and well able to take that quiz at the end. Good luck, everyone, and do a great job on your 5.08 quiz.